I'm Coy Veith, joined by Skip Mussett here. We are in the Costa Mesa Experience Center, coming to you live. We're going to be talking about CSS today, and Skip's actually going to do a lot of the driving here, but we'll have some fun with it.
Yeah. This is the part 2 of the 2-part deep dive on CSS and really talking about templates, the whys and the hows, and this we'll talk about that and actually breaking up your CSS into multiple files, and we'll talk about the importing of one CSS into another as a way that I protect myself from tweaking the file. For those that were on the first part of this, this is the file, right? And the CSS that we were working with was the CSS Q-SYS class templates, right? That's the Q-SYS or the CSS file that we were working with as far as in part 1. And we talked about, right, all the things and what the template was itself. Today we're going to look at obviously but we're going to look at what I did to break that apart. So I'm going to do a little review just of that file itself. So the template itself, right, you can see that I am we're importing some custom fonts. This is also a custom icon font that I built. And then really the power of the template is about the root directory, right? So this root directory and variables, and really the use of variables so that this is where you make your changes as opposed to down below, right? So there's variables for sizes and colors and gradients, right? I'm very enamored with gradients because you can't do those in properties, so I've gone crazy with those. So those are just straight up variables. I want to reference a picture, a logo, a background, whatever you want, right? And this is the next section with variables, calling variables. So I build variables that I call down below, right, for my navigation controls, my source controls, my transport controls. I had to come back and actually make a tweak to this file because we just introduced the flex box, right? So I created the structure for a flex box so that I could call it easily, right? My meters and faders, and then some background, right?
Something else to recap on with this that I know I've heard Skip say many times is this style sheet is built for speed. It's built for quick deployment. That can cover a lot of bases very quickly and allow you to roll out a UI looking exactly the way you need it to look for your customer very quickly. And that was the overall kind of arching theme, right, of what you were trying to do with this.
Yeah, so I went down a lot of different rabbit holes when I started in CSS, and that with some very specific ideas and some specific things, and kind of what I came out with was just that of how can I structure the CSS so that I can make as few modifications in a few places and achieve a look, but still give me the flexibility that I could customize as I'd want to go, right? And that's building these structures, right? These are still variables. They just happen to be variables calling a variable, right? So my source color off is still a variable calling a color that is a variable, right? You're like, I don't quite understand that, but right. And so this is my root directory, right? All of this is my root directory all the way down to here, right? Technically, right? That is my entire structure. That is all that I need to change. It's just the root directory, right? So below this, I don't make changes. So in that idea of me not making changes down here, the next step to this was to protect myself from myself, like I said at the beginning, is that I end up making so many tweaks to things that I keep wanting to change below here, right? And the reality is that in the template, the way that you, well, I'm going to say the way you should, and I don't want to say it exactly like the way that I use it is that I don't want to make changes from here below, right? I want to create a structure up in my root directory that's all I make changes up here. And then this just applies everything down below, right? Well, in that, I had to create a little more verbose structure up here to manage that. But then I created a template. I separated these files, right? So this will look, this is what I call the base template right here, base template, which looks very similar. It may have some more, a little bit more variables and a little more structure, right? But it just has the structure that I'm calling because I need to call in all the images that I have in the template folder. This is also the main folder where I manage all of my fonts, any fonts that I'm bringing in, all of that. And then it has all of the calls, right, where all of these templates are. All right, and then you have your base, right? I created these are what I'm actually applying as the CSS. But the first line is the most important line right here. This line right here that says this CSS base template, I am importing that entire CSS sheet that we just looked at. I'm importing that into this style sheet, right? Now I don't technically have to call these imports again, but I do it because it saves me some of the saves, right? So it makes it easier because if I'm just calling them again, they are calling from the other style sheet, but I just make a reference, hey, I want to use these. And then really from here below, it's just the changes that I want to make to my root directory, right? That root directory. And if you look, there's nothing else to the rest of the style sheet. I make my changes to the root directory, right? And we're going to take the file, right, that is currently, well, that is, so we have a screen in here that is extremely, right?
There is no CSS file in that GitHub. Am I missing something? If you click on the main, let me go to it here. Sorry. If you click on the main drop down that's next to branches, you should be able to see there's two things where you can download. There's an extras folder, and then there is a couple of Q-SYS designer files. Let me open it up here.
Right here, branches.
Oh, yeah. Now just click that drop down on the side. It's a little bit easier.
Where's the branches?
Go back.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right, you were on main. And
yeah, you're on main. You've got extras and then QSD files there.
And then everybody can download from there.
Yeah.
All right, so currently we have the previous class template. Right, if I change this to the base start light, right, I made some changes, right? That's my change there, just so you can see it. Right, this other one, I'm going to apply the dark theme to, right? So I have my dark theme. Right, they're as I would do a base template, right? That a base starting template, right? This is, I'm calling a base color. Then I would modify these, right? I do a copy and paste of these folders, right? These are the folders that we're talking about. These two folders that are in my QSE designer styles, right? I have my start dark, my start light. They are set up to be very generic, right? And then you apply your, as I call it, the branding colors for whatever you're going to style this to. And I would tell you that that's something that I really look at, is that if you have a client, they have potentially and most likely a division of their company that has spent a lot of time and energy and money in order to build a branding, right? And a branding guidelines. It has colors, it has logos, get it, find it, and then you change it, right? So we'll look at the light one first, right? I still have some base colors that I put in there, right? I can add, right? I want to make a change to the gradient. I want to change it from gray and we're going to change it to the blue, right? Let's just change it to blue.
Still referencing your variable.
Still referencing my variables, blue. Actually, this is referencing the variables from the pulled in.
Yeah, the imported file. Yeah.
So I save that.
Get there.
Actually, I think it's on this one. Save. I did it on the light. And now it's blue instead of just being a gray start. So you can add those colors, but you would add it to the light, right? You would add it to that starting folder. This one, I would do a copy and paste. I would rename it whoever you're making it for, whatever your situation is. Always protect your base folders, right? But the thing that I really love about this that helps me is that I do a lot with icon fonts, right? My own icon fonts, and that can be a whole nother subject, and anybody can reach out to me and we can talk about those.
We do have a question that this could lead into talking about the icon fonts. So somebody asked about larger style sheets slowing down the project. I think what the fonts bring to the table for us is it prevents that bloating from happening. And so to answer yeah, you can save that for another time. I think the takeaway here, Jason, who asked the question, yes, potentially. And it's not necessarily that it's going to like slow down your core or anything like that, but if you start adding images into your file and you're loading those in, those get loaded into the file when you push your file to the core. That can add a whole slew of objects to your UCI that have to load. And so let's say you've got two UCIs for a room. One is your advanced user page and one is your general user page. All of that stuff is thrown into both of those UCIs. And let's say it's 75 objects. I'm picking a random number. That's a lot of objects. But if I switch between those UCIs, those have to load. They take longer to load.
It's actually 150 objects.
It's actually 150 objects. It's actually in there twice. That means your files get larger much faster. Again, that doesn't mean it won't work. It can just add some obstacles you have to start thinking about when you build these and they're very large. And I'll let Skip kind of talk about the fonts here and what we have found to be a much better approach to icons specifically, which is kind of where everybody tends to go, is creating those into a font. And sorry, I'll give it back.
No worries. I want to answer Aaron's question about in the file itself under your design resources. So when you download the file for that CSS base template, they actually have come with the file. So you can they're already installed right here. You can actually download them to your computer. I will make a point to say right here that if you get this message that says overwrite, make a copy, or cancel, right? Make a copy, because I have overwritten a lot of my life on accident. And so make a copy and figure out who wins. And try not to use overwrite, but they're already installed in the file. So when you get a designer file that actually has CSS applied to it, the CSS came with it and you can download it from the designer file onto your computer. But back to icon fonts, right? So this is a font and it's not the only place. Like this is a custom one. There are the Zerb, if you go onto our help file, there's the Zerb library and there's also the Google material fonts. The cool thing about those fonts is that they are loaded into the core, right? So I can natively, but it gives you the syntax to calling those up. So if you look down here, right, there is the Zerb syntax, right? This is the foundations, and then you go to the Zerb library online and then it gives you a name and then you can just type it in here and call it. This is the material fonts, right? So you reference material, icon, and then whatever the name is that you get online. I would tell you that I believe most all the Zerb libraries in there, the material fonts, they are making fonts faster than we can update the core. So for the most part, they will be there, but you might see something online that isn't necessarily supported in the core yet.
In which case it won't show the icon you expect it to show.
It will give you the question mark or the whatever weird symbol comes up. So there are multiple ways, but the key is here that when you call these, this is like calling a character on a keyboard. It is not an image. It is actually in that custom font, which these are too. It is actually a font, which is the problem with using an image is, again, like Coy said, if I want a different color, I have to create a different instance of that color. As opposed to, I can color a font, like just I can color a letter on the screen. That's what keeps your file size. I actually try to avoid, again, part of that speed of deployment is efficiency in that file size. So about the only images that I use are logos. I do have some general background images that I have done some work on, just keeping them as small as I can possibly make them and still have them stretch out and still look good. So I manage that file size as much as I can, but I also don't call a zillion of them anymore. So I have kind of a light one or a dark one, or if there's a company one that comes with it.
And just to clarify, when we say image, talking about icons on a button, you can load an SVG or a PNG or a JPEG that is the image that you want the icon to be on the button. It bloats fast. It bloats very quickly when you start doing that, and you need multiple colors. Plus, you have to manage all of that. Treating it like a font, it's treated like a font. I apply a font color to it to change it.
Yeah. So the whole adventure, this whole adventure for me was I wanted to put an image at the top of a button and words at the bottom. And I did it. And it was 12,000 lines of code, and it was completely unmanageable, which is why I came out the other end of this with a template built for speed. And that's what this is about. Like I said, this is my base template, which I don't touch. The only reason that I touch this base template, and I'll give you an example, is to create the flex box or to create something new that is not a part of that got added, right? Or I have a particular thing that I do that got added that I like the way that it looks. So I'll create a structure, but I want to be able to make it more universal no matter which one I'm calling. That way, my base template is really the only thing that gets updated with, quote, new things, but it's new things that have been vetted in those starting files. I'll create things and create those customizations in my start files, right? When I go to that customization, quote, my tweaks as I'm finding things out or I'm trying new things. Hey, I kind of like that. How can I make this structure easier to call, right, in the future? And that's potentially what gets added to the base template. But again, protecting your base template. When I import a new custom font, I import it in my template, right? If I import it here, then every time I call it, it's now available everywhere else that I then import, right? Every time I import this means I've imported all those new fonts, imported all that new structure that I put into the template. I'm importing that entire style sheet right here that I have available to me, right? So again, as I go through the template, this was built for speed. And this is my brain, and I apologize that you have to explore my brain because it's as crazy as that is. But you can name these whatever works for you. Just understand that cascading, right? It's a giant argument table, right? It basically says the last one checked wins, right? So it's basically going through and it's looking at, right, which is the last font size you pick, which is the last icon you pick. Part of why things are named the way they are. I tend to, when you look at this file, right, we'll look at this file. I tend, when I style a button, right, this root button right here, all I do in the beginning is just put a color, you're off and you're on, maybe your press state. I don't choose typically a font size or an icon. That is something that I layer on, right? When you look at the calls here, right, this is layered on. That there's my button because this is in my navigation section, right? I've aligned it, right? So this is my layering on. I have a little bit of padding in there. I have a font size, right? And then I call an icon somewhere down here, right? Everybody gets on to me. I have a lot of icons.
Which is why we hide a lot of them.
That's why we hide a lot of them in other parts of classes, as we call them. But that's the point, is that I layer them on because then I can customize the button, right? I just pick my themes, right? And you saw in my style sheet that when I want to change, right? Let's say I want to change this to, what's my other colors? What was my other choices? Right, I have blue, green. I don't know. It seems like a green day, right? If I change this to green, and I can make this one change, green, right? Let's say I want to leave that blue. I want to change my radius. Let's change my radius.
Square. You're going big.
Oh, I'm going big radius.
Big radius.
Going big radius.
Sounds like something that kids would say. Like big mad,
right?
Big radius.
I've changed my radius. I've changed my, right? I've changed a look, right? And again, that was the speed part of this, was the capability to build a structure that I could make a copy of this folder, add my colors, right? That's the deal, right? I would add the custom colors that I'd want, right? I leave base colors in there that do things, right? I add my colors up here. Anything custom, any variables that I want to call, right? I load the folder, has the image for the image logo that I want to call, or a background that I want to call. And that's the only thing that's in this folder, right? That image, those two images, and that's it. Those two images, or multiple images if you want multiple choices, right? I add my branding colors, as I call it. I like a solid version, and I do a semi-transparent version, but you don't have to.
That's a skip style.
That's very a skipism.
Yeah.
So schism. But you add your colors, and then you make your changes, and your calls down here. What I want to call that? Oh, this is my dark grays. This is and I make these color changes, and then that's it. Right? Everything else in the template is calling these variables that I'm setting right here. And that is the key to the speed part, is to build the structure. You may build your structure differently. And I hope that you do. And I hope that you build something that works for you. This is what works for me. And I'm continuing this. Trust me, I don't know what version I'm on now.
This is like 4 revs back at least.
I had to go find this one in order to do this deep dive. But again, I build it so that something has to be really a big change in order for me to add it to my template. If not, I keep my sandbox in this. I copy this folder and I make a new one, and this is where I do all my tweaks so that I don't change. If I could give you anything, is build your template folder and guard your template folder so that it has your structure, and then you're making changes that call into it.
And the idea is being able to repurpose this. Now, we've said it several times, a template, but not having to recreate the wheel every time. And if you can take the time to build something like this to work from as you start every file, it will make your life so much easier to make a nice looking UI that you can make slight tweaks to provide, whether it's a submittal to the customer or you just weren't given enough time on the project, you've already put the effort into this. Nothing drives us more crazy than UIs that don't look like there's a lot of effort put into them. And so the goal with even if you don't want to go make your own, the goal with us sharing this, and Skip did 99% of the work in this. I'll take 1% of the credit. The idea of sharing this is to give this to you so you can learn from it, make your own. But even if you don't necessarily have a lot of time to do that, you can use this and give yourself better looking UIs much more quickly than if you had to learn all of this from scratch, which we all did.
Well, and on that note, for those that are newer to CSS and you're kind of, this is kind of the dive into the deep end, right? For those that might be newer, we have many webinars, right? That take you from the beginning. I will also tell you the help file, right? How I started this adventure was I literally pulled out a blank UCI, drug every kind of control that we have onto it. And then I went to the help file and there was a sample CSS. And then I copied all of the examples of all the different kind of controls. And there's plenty of structure in there. And then I honestly watched what happened and I would make a change and then I would see what happened. So it was very much of a visual feedback, which works in my brain. And I really do like that. But so I implore you to do that so that you understand, because this is the deeper end of the pool, not from I'm doing anything magical necessarily in here. Once you get your brain wrapped around a variable, calling a variable, right? Here's a note to self for everyone. If you call a variable that has not been created, you will break everything below it. Right? So this is where,
which in your case is everything, because it's all variables.
Yes, and it goes, the whole style sheet goes. So this is where VS Code helps you, right? Because it gives you a list as you start to type. It gives you a list that says, these are the ones up above that that are already created. So these are your safe choices, right? I can choose this one and go, okay, that will work. But I don't want to, why are there 3 button choices? People ask me that. Navigation, source, and transport. These are nothing more than for me to have the capability to style 3 different kinds of buttons quickly, right? So I have a structure when you look at a UCI that I've built. And if you ever take a class from me, the intermediate or the advanced class, you'll hear me say the word regionalize, right? I regionalize. Why? Now, this is not, we can have another deep dive on UCI structure, right? That's a different topic, but for me, I regionalize this, which is, right? So this is my navigation bar, we'll call it, at the bottom. I tend to think that, things are bottom weighted where in the world as far as where you make selections, but wherever you put them, think about it and be consistent with it, right? So this is my navigation, which I also tie to the header, right? I want these color wise to track together, right? Font colors, icon colors, anything that I do, I want these 2 sections to match. I created this target in the middle of the screen where you would make a source selection, right? Or the next level of a navigation selection, right? So if I emulate these files, right? I make my selection. I have to make a selection here, right? Which it takes me to my routing, right? Same thing on this light one. If I make a selection, right?
That green is popping, man.
That green is popping, baby. Right? So my navigation, right? This would be my transport, right? I want to make a little bit of extra highlight. And again, it's a personal preference, but if you look at these controls, they start out gray and they go to blue when you press them. These start out blue and go to gray when you press them. It's a thing, right? Have fun with it. Play with those things. But all I'm trying to do is just grab attention to or point at these that when you're in this might be some important controls, right? It's a way that you can highlight something on your UCI. right? And everybody can see I changed these to green, but I didn't change my blue. My
On your source buttons or your
so
or your
this right here,
transport, right?
I made these the solid gradient. This is the opaque version, right? If I change those to green, which I can't because I'm emulating, but you can really customize anything. I can customize corner radiuses, and that's again, I built a structure that I can make those changes in as few places as possible. That was the object to this goal. So the first CSS that I created that solved the problem of putting an image at the top and words at the bottom, I achieved. And it was completely unmanageable. It was ridiculous. And I had 5 colors, right? I had white, black, gray, and the Q-SYS 2 Q-SYS blues. And the file sizes were ungodly large. But more than that, it was completely unmanageable that every time, if I ever had a custom color, like if I ever wanted to do a specific blue or a specific something for a company, it meant that I had to create a whole nother section or a whole nother list of those images. And so my file sizes kept getting bigger. And it was,
not to mention you have to create those.
I have to create.
You have to create those colors.
Completely ridiculous.
To import them.
And so that's what started the icon font. And again, there's 2 libraries already built into the core. Take advantage of them. You can get started. Again, these icons they're free to you. They're a part of the style sheet. If you take the time to talk to me about CSS and send me files and we can have some interaction, I have probably about another 150 icons and more libraries that I will send you as a part of that. I also take requests for icons. That doesn't mean they're always going to get created, but I'm always looking.
But he'll steal your idea and make them and keep them for himself.
I'll give them back. I'll give them back. So we will add them to that. But I like the challenge of looking at things that I didn't create, and I'm always open to other things. I do have my opinions about things like everybody does, but for me, if you don't get anything out of today in this structure, one, having at least the base class template is worth it, right? Understanding what this does. This is a structure. It's just everything's all together. It's probably easier to read at first, right? Having everything in one CSS as opposed to the import part where you break things apart. This is where you start and you start looking at it because you get a direct correlation to I made a change right here and it directly changes everything below it, right? So start with this file and then you'll start to see the correlation between these two, right? Having a base start that imports your template, right? You start with where it's all together. And then again, for those that are newer to this you kind of jumped into the deeper end of the pool. As a matter of fact, I want to say that the star sitting next to me, I started watching some of your early webinars on CSS. And but I really do like to understand the structure of what's going on. Like I said, this is a whole lot of things going on.
Yeah.
Right. But to really, and again, that's not what this webinar is about, but just understand there's a structure to how you do a meter or how you do a button and what this means. And those base structure, there's plenty of content that we have that's available to you that you could take advantage of to build up to have a better understanding of what you're looking at here. I would never expect anybody that's newer to this topic to just go, it is something that you can use. I would do a save as and a copy and you can.
What's up, Spencer?
Wait, what's the question?
No, sorry, finish what you were saying.
Oh, I'm just saying that I don't expect anybody to be able to jump into the deep end necessarily right out of the gate. And it's to understand the structure, but once you understand, again, we started this topic today and I started to think about what I was going to talk about today on this topic because I've done this this deep dive before and it's all about the root directory. The magic for this template happens in the root directory. If you set up your files, they should only be making calls of variables. It's kind of like when you're writing a script, right? Event handlers should not be managing code. They should be calling functions. They should be calling things, right? The same thing for your CSS is that if you build your root folder and your structure, this is where you make your changes, and the rest of your CSS is calling whatever, right? You have your naming structure. Every time I want to make a change to a navigation color off, I only make it in one place.
Yep.
Right? And it changes it everywhere else that gets called.
Anywhere that navigation color off variable is referenced, everywhere else below that or in the imported.
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes that change.
It makes that change everywhere.
So understand, if you have questions, shoot me a message. If you have questions about the root directory, about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
So we do have one. I think this is a fun one that I started playing with. Skip and I started playing with. I came up with this idea of playing with the corner radiuses. So he's asking about the individual corner radiuses.
Yes.
So yeah, if you want to show him that. So it's a little clunkier than you would maybe initially think, but once you see it, it's not too bad. Yeah, so here you go. As you can see, are the radius classes. So you basically have to call out exactly what you want each corner to be, all four corners in a single class. And so you can see here, his naming convention, radius bottom right, you can see you're calling out 0 corner radius for the first, second, and fourth item argument in that. And the third one is actually the bottom right corner. I don't remember the exact sequence of which position is which corner. You can kind of figure that out on your own, but you can see there by having 0 called out for 1, 0 called out for 2, 20 called out for the third, and then 0 on the fourth. That gives you the bottom right corner having a 20 corner radius. And for those of y'all who want to know what he's talking about, flip back to the UCI on your transport controls there.
Yeah. So that's how I achieved this.
You have the corners kind of lined up there.
Yeah. So let me.
And so you essentially have to build a class for each corner that you want to affect. However, if in your classes that you've already applied to that control have corner radiuses called out, the whole idea of cascading is as things move down, the things lower in the list overwrite the things higher in the list. So one of the ways to do that is by making sure you name your classes appropriately. And because he has it called radius, it's towards the bottom. And so all of those will override whatever corner radius he has built into the navigation.
Yeah, so the first thing I did was take all the radiuses off of this, and then I put the one back on that I want.
Yep.
Right. Same thing with the stroke down below. Here's a keynote. I've started to go to, for me, the flex box is the new group box. Because a group box, I like the capability to be able to only put stroke on parts of an object, and you can't do that with a group box. Yep. Because it only has sides, and so it goes if you take off any of them, I no longer exist. So a flex box works more like a button from how you can style it, which can allow you to do that. But I can do stroke that. You ready? We're going to do something crazy. Are you ready? Just because we're doing it.
Just because we can.
All right. All right. I'm going to do this and that. Hold on. Wow, it just flipped out.
That never happens.
Nope. Check. All right, so I just put stroke on the left and the right side of these buttons. Why? Because we can.
Just a little accent to the buttons there.
Yeah, and it works. And I have really explored, if there's something that you're trying to achieve, honestly, reach out. If you have an idea, I can tell you what in Q-SYS. Now, again, CSS in Q-SYS is not CSS everywhere else. That we are translating CSS into properties currently. There will be a time when it is more directly supported and more fully supported. I don't know how long that road is or when it's on the map, but that will come. But for currently, I can tell you more about what's possible. I have been to potentially at the bottom of every kind of rabbit hole. And I challenge because I want to know if there's a rabbit hole I haven't been down, and Coy knows if somebody gives me one, I'll figure it out. But
and he will get a shovel and go right into that hole.
I will try to do it. So if you have ideas or if there's something you're trying to achieve, reach out. I would love to help you. I would love to help you figure it out. Chances
empower you. We want to empower you.
We do. We want to empower you. That better UCIs, I think, give you, give your customer, well, there's the whole science of a UCI. If I could give you anything is get to the point fast. Think of a UCI as an elevator pitch, right? Get to the point as soon as possible and as few controls as possible. Right? And what's that?
Yeah, fewer button presses, fewer flips of layers.
Please do not do that.
Larry asked a question, is there a way to nest flex boxes to make stacks of widgets? I'll let you take that one since you've played with that flex box a whole lot more than I have. I don't believe so.
No, I look forward to the day when we fully support what a flex box means in CSS, because that will solve all of the problems that I started out writing CSS for in the very beginning. We do not. It's a very basic flex box. It will only accept X number of things. Basic control. You can't even put a basic string. You actually have to put a control that's called a string.
Yeah, like a toolbox control.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's a way that you can put a title in there, but we are very restricted, or we restrict what's in a flex box as far as the way, because again, remember, we're translating all that into properties. It currently right now is really a structure, and it has some great uses. We're looking at I love it in an exercise with like a divisible space, right? When things are combined, you get more controls, and it can manage with that invisibility. It can manage those buttons, and so they still look, and you don't have to do alignment. That's really all we intended it to do, and that's the capability that I look forward to the day when we really open up what we can do with the Flexbox. But that's
because the Flexbox is a real CSS thing, right?
Correct.
A HTML thing, even for websites,
and
we just don't support all of the properties of it
because it also supports like size, location,
yeah,
all of those things. Yeah. So we're like a Flexbox like that compared to what is actually possible.
Flexbox light.
Yeah, we're a Flexbox. Yeah, very light. Any other questions?
It's been a quiet group today.
Quiet group. Come on, people. Let's go.
Anybody who's been to Austin knows we are anything but quiet. Can we do borders with rotating assets with gradient and animation, something similar to neon signs? You can do that, Gerardo, but not with CSS. That's something you would have to do programmatically in a script. There's lots of examples of that. If you go onto communities, lots of people have posted about doing things like that. Yeah, easy SVG. There's some really cool ones out there. I've seen some nice stuff. Definitely check that out though. If you're interested in it, look on communities. Probably the Facebook group. I'm not on there, but I'm sure somebody's posted on there as well if you're not on communities. Although I would encourage you to use communities because we made it to connect Q-SYS users with other Q-SYS users. So and I know that it's on
threads. There's like UCI and CSS threads that are on there. And there are some extremely talented people that have a lot of time on their hands, apparently.
Too much, some
that
might
do
say.
some wild things. But natively in CSS, it's not possible to, matter of fact, I don't believe you can actually even make different border colors. You can't address a border color on a side differently. So it's either you only get one border color in a straight CSS the way that we're doing it. So yeah, I would. Easy SVG is probably the most powerful tool to get whenever anybody asks me questions like you're asking me, to go to that next level, and to anytime you say the word animate or rotate or do any of those things at that level, that's where you get into easy SVG currently. And I hope as we get closer to deployment of HTML5 and other things in UCIs, which again, I don't know, and don't hammer us on how long that road is or when that might happen, because neither one of us knows. But yeah, it will. It's I love that, a toxic community. They are, and well, it's because it's regulated by us, from a community standpoint. Yeah.
You got to put your real name in there too. It's harder to hide when you're talking smack to somebody.
Ooh.
I had a recent situation where I was trying to style a polygon and I felt pretty limited. I couldn't add icons. Then I tried to make a button within the polygon to add the icon to. I mapped the same controller button on the polygon, but the polygon didn't show to be pressed when the button was pressed. Any tips for that? Yeah, the polygon is going to be more restrictive for sure, because it's so customized as being that you drew it. It's just going to be more limited. I don't know exactly the limitations of it. It's just
part of the problem is it doesn't define like corners in the same structured way as you would a control, right? And so you can have 16 corners, right, in a polygon. And so it doesn't define the same way in CSS. And I don't believe there's a way, at least from the way that we deal with it from a Q-SYS. I've never tried to apply an icon to a polygon. And so it's something, and I also don't know that there is a press state, but you're applying a control to it to get those properties. So thank you for the rabbit hole, because I'm going to have to figure that one out to see what happens, because I have not played with a polygon in order to understand that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
He's not joking.
He is.
That's all he's going to talk about now. Thanks a lot, Spencer. Appreciate that. You can be like, check out what I did with the polygon.
Yeah. So what's the use case for a polygon? I want to say is that I've done things with like we do in the exercise with the visible spaces. I have done things where I've changed the colors and stuff like that to give more of like an indicator, right? You're applying an indicator to it or something about like you're applying an LED or something. And I've done managing the colors of those states, but I've not, I currently right now, I don't believe there's a way to address like the corners and the edges.
Yeah, go into the help file real quick for CSS here, and if you haven't seen this before, go to the supported properties there where it's got the matrix. You can see here this polygon, or this first matrix shows the different properties that are available to you based on the graphical element that you're applying them to. So polygon, you can see here what is available to you, which is going to show you what you can and can't do based on
there's your radius. You can't do that.
You don't have radius.
Because you can define more than 4.
Well, in content here is text. You can't put text in a polygon. So if you're using a font for your icons, that is text. Text, I'll put in air quotes, that's content. It doesn't support that. So that could just be a restriction there.
Well, you could put an icon image in it, potentially. based on this. I have to look up what the little asterisk means, right? Or the little word.
Any tips for creating a drop shadow on a card, element, flexbox, group box with CSS?
Wait, any tips? Oh, yeah, no.
No tips.
No tips, as in they're not.
As in you can't do it.
You can't do it right now until that is the same issue or the same problem with a Flexbox, right? It is further down the road, and until I don't believe we're ever going to do anything on drop shadow related internally in the properties. I just don't think that we're going to, but as we support other things, the HTML5 and other ways that we can bring in the capability to style or create a UCI, that will open up all of those, right? That I believe will happen faster.
Make a rectangle, add the icon, and then add polygon to the side. There you go. I like your outside the box thinking there, Roger. That's great. Mohammed said some of the custom font is working iPad. It is not working on Android. I don't know what to tell you about that one. I've never used an Android device. Sounds like I don't know.
Which custom font is the one that's on this property?
Yeah, are you talking about Skip's font library icons? Is that what you're referencing there?
All right. Questions?
Let's see if he comes back, but if not, yeah, we'll hang for a couple more minutes here.
I just don't have any Android to try.
Yeah, I don't have anything Android to try.
Bill's phone. Let's go steal Phil's phone.
Steal Phil's phone. I like it. Hopefully this was informative to everyone in some extent. Play with this style sheet. The whole idea behind Skip putting this together was to share it, to give you kind of not only a running start if you're implementing some systems and you just want to make them look pretty, but also giving you something to reference as you want to grow your knowledge and how powerful CSS can be, even though we're only scratching the surface of it really, in how we use it in Q-SYS. But it's the things that we have are very useful to what you need in Q-SYS. It's not everything, obviously. There's some things that we wish we had, animations and things like that could be accomplished other ways, but ultimately you have plenty to make your UIs look good, which even if your system is just not working correctly, man, if the UI looks pretty, at least the user goes, at least it looks good.
So, and that's one of the reasons why we created these two different UCIs. And they are in many respects kind of over the top as far as the kinds and the amount of controls that are on here. And that's kind of on purpose to show you kind of an example of every kind of control that you could get into in a context of a situation, right? Why it might be looking like that. And then for you to make changes. Well, I don't like these controls being blue. Right? Go in, figure out how to make that change, right? So it's there to be, like I said, every kind of control that you might want to do is in these files. There's the light version and a dark version, and you can kind of play around with that. That was kind of the object to creating these files in the first place was, we know that there's a lot on these, but
yeah, nobody's going to put a fader with then incremental buttons on the right here. That would drive me insane.
Right. This is for
but
class.
That was to show, that was to show how a fader works, right?
Exactly.
All the different properties of that.
And yeah, like I said, you have both of our emails, and if there's anything that we can do to help you in your adventures, please reach out.
Never found the CSS.
The
Okay.
CSS is inside the user, is inside the designer file. They're
Yeah.
not separate. They are not separate files. They are embedded in the file under design resources.
You missed it. There you
I
go.
did. I missed it. Right?
Yeah, so they're installed in there,
They're
Spencer.
installed, and then
Yeah.
you can download those to your computer right here, right? If you click on it, you get the download button and it will download to your computer.
Get the GitHub. Yes, I will post the GitHub link again.
Yeah, so you should just see the two designer files in the GitHub. There should be the part 1 and part 2. Part 2 has part 1 just has the template. Part 2 has all 4 of them. Right? They should be loaded. They'll start with a template and then you can apply the light and the dark to the different ones as you want and then play with it from there.
Jump back to the GitHub real quick and show them. So on the left of where it says branches here, down below, you can see main, extras, and QSD files.
Right. Usually when you go, it defaults to this. So this is what you see.
You're going to come in here, you're going to click main, and then you can click on extras, and that'll take you to a folder that has some stuff in it that we did just kind of based around some company branding guidelines. And so you can see that here. Yeah, more style sheets for you in there. If you click that drop down again, you'll see the designer files, QSD files. Those are here, and then you can download those. Hopefully that's what y'all are looking for.
This one, under the extras, opening up that design file right there, the deep dive for template brandings, you can actually switch different companies and it will actually change the entire logos, everything. So that is a fun file to look at. That one, that was the whole reason.
Oh, the branding one. Yeah.
Yeah. The one there has these style sheets and more in the document, right? But then I talk about here you go in here, this is where we got the branding information. We did one for Lenovo, one for Slack, and one for Spotify, just as an example. That's what's in this template for branding.
And if you want to take those and kind of compare them to the template file that's in those other two Q-SYS designer files, you'll see how very few lines needed to be changed to accomplish meeting the requirements of their branding guidelines.
Yeah.
Which is a very easy way to impress your customers, make their UI look like their branding guideline, and they're going to be like, this is amazing. How did you know this is what we needed?
And then make sure that you show it to the marketing people who created all of that. They will love it. And yeah, they will love it, because I even read our branding documents and I talked to the head of our marketing department. And he goes, you probably were the only one that ever read those documents. Because they tell you how they want their logo used, what colors are this. Here's our primaries. They tell you all the things in order to achieve a look. And if you just follow the directions, it will, and that's why I created the template, was an easy way to follow the directions and achieve a look as fast and as profitable as possible was the goal.
That's right.
Unless somebody doesn't want to make any money, then you're on your own.
That's what we're all in the business of doing, right? Not making a living.
We're all nonprofits.
Yeah, we're all nonprofits. That's right.
Right.
We've got to sign off, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Reach out if you've got questions. We're here to support you in your journey in Q-SYS. Thanks for starting your morning with us. For those of you that it's morning, I don't know where everybody is or where we are even most times. So thank you. Have a great week, everyone.
All right.
See you on the next one.